This is Anatomy of Success, and I'm your host, Steve Wohlenhaus. This week, leaders do 8 things poorly that make good people leave. Ever experienced that at your job? Oh, I bet you have. Let's get started. Welcome to Anatomy of Success, where each week we discuss topics that are relevant to what I call my 4 tenets of equanimity, which are, if you're new here, better health, healthy relationships, and healthy intimate relationships, along with more satisfying work. When we focus on those broad buckets of things and all the topics that pertain to those subjects, we start to move in the direction of focusing on things we can do each and every day to stimulate joy, happiness, being present, physical activity, mental activity, and moving in the direction of a more positive life. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our audio podcast, and then swing over to weatherology.com. Grab the Weatherology mobile app. It is free. And then find me on my social media accounts under About Us. Now, everyone is a self-proclaimed expert on leadership. It's easy to be critical of people in positions of power because most people lack insight into the challenges that they confront, to be fair. Strong leaders are required to make very difficult choices, and that may be unpopular but serve the best interest of everybody involved. Weakness is easily exploited, and bullies love to experiment with pushing the limitations of people they believe lack resolve. Now is a good time to see that happening, played out on the world stage of politics. We're seeing very weak leadership around the world, people with very ambiguous boundaries. It's fascinating to watch. Leadership, however, to be effective requires a strong value system. Anyone exploring possibilities of leadership in careers, we have to start by leading ourselves. Bad decisions can have severe consequences, mentally, physically, in our personal and professional lives. And that is especially true today, as companies spend exorbitant amounts of energy re-engineering their work environments. The question is their energy being spent wisely? Working for a weak leader and weak organizations can create a myriad of professional challenges that deplete productivity and our sense of job satisfaction. Here are 8 signs you have a poor leader in charge of the company that you work for. Poor chemistry. Now, every business has a few people that love to whine. It's human nature. However, when dissent is ubiquitous and the animus is aimed at leadership, there's a problem. People are entitled to complain occasionally, but if the general sentiment is the organization lacks good leadership, you're in trouble. Teams disintegrate with lack of direction, and the company suffers financially when leadership is weak. Poor communication. I find it amusing that so many self-proclaimed leaders recite the latest wisdom they've acquired from a recent bestseller. Find your why. Build a tribe. Most leaders are prolific readers. The problem is that they don't practice what they preach, and they don't mentor by communicating effectively. Great communication is lacking in most corporate environments, and it starts with great listening skills. Many leaders aren't great listeners. They communicate poorly and don't articulate their vision with clarity. Poor retention. Now, when people are running to the fire escape, it's a bad sign. Poor retention and high turnover are a sure sign the organization is struggling. When good people leave on good terms for better opportunities, that's one thing. When people are miserable and there's a mass exodus, that's another story. Make sure the organization you're working for has strong retention and a history of success. People lose motivation quickly when their colleagues run to the door. At Weatherology, my top 4 team leaders have over 100 years of invested organizational experience, and they are smart enough to bring young, diverse, fresh perspectives into our business, and they stick around. Poor trust. Poor leaders micromanage and demand frequent meetings. How many times do we need to reiterate the obvious? I have to ask. I can't believe how many companies waste precious time meeting every single week all the time. When we have clear vision, focus, clarity, and trust our people to exceed expectations every time, they usually do. People get resentful when they feel micromanaged and when there's a lack of trust. It's like having a controlling partner that wants to check your phone. Healthy people don't stick around very long under those circumstances. Poor vision. When the organization has a clear purpose and the vision is clear, people are productive and very enthusiastic. It's easy to get excited about a person with clarity and conviction, especially when their track record is impeccable. Show me a leader without vision, and I will show you a person that lacks inspiration and focus. When teams lack focus, they drift in the direction of arbitrary parameters that make work very frustrating. Pick a business with crystal clear vision. That's who you want to work for. Poor priorities. Many leaders lack the ability to clearly define what's expected of their teams. When we fail to set deadlines, offer vague details, and neglect communicating with a clear vision, people get frustrated and confused. To prevent misunderstanding, we need to communicate our priorities clearly and make sure expectations are spelled out in detail. When people don't know what the priorities are, they get frustrated, which leads to confrontation based on assumptions. For example, many people have reached out to me on LinkedIn expressing their discontent over poor leaderships that demonstrates favoritism in the office. When people get the impression that certain individuals are receiving preferential treatment, trust and openness are gone. Weak leaders rely on people that patronize them with platitudes and approbations. Regardless of how disingenuous it might be, their massive egos can't resist the praise. Once these dynamics materialize, people learn to be quiet and comply for fear of reciprocity. Sound familiar? There's a lot of that going on today. Poor contributions. When leaders are glorified bullies, the organization lacks diversity of opinion. People learn to remain silent, and lack of contribution creates an echo chamber of conformity. Bullies publicly humiliate people and trample on people's emotions. It's the most obvious sign of bad leadership. A person with no emotional intelligence or self-awareness ensures very little contribution from their valuable team members. So I hope this conversation today about 8 things we need to recognize about the leadership in our organizations. If you're a leader, these are 8 things we need to improve upon. I offer these tips because I know many of you are working jobs you don't like. And if you notice these signs, these can be real big problems that will almost ensure your life at work is going to be miserable. Hope you enjoyed this conversation today. I'm Steve Wohlenhaus. This is Anatomy of Success. Let's stay focused, let's stay positive, and let's stay optimistic. See you next week.